after Alabama beat Georgia, you said you feel even more confident about Georgia's chances to win the national championship. Now, I understand that Georgia stormed back in the second half, not just made it close, but took the lead. Very impressive, especially in a true road game like that. But boy, that first half, man, they just had no answers, and that was Carson Beck's worst performance to me, especially in that first half. I know he ended up throwing for over 400 yards. But why are you feeling even more confident now after that game of Georgia's chances to win the national championship?
Yeah, so when I came into the year, I probably wasn't viewing Georgia in the same light as everybody else. So for me, I'm always a very big look at the roster, look at what could be weaknesses going into the year, and then kind of make that assessment. I think it was a very easy leap for most people to take to say Georgia's just going to win it again. They're the best. They've got the most players. But I thought that there was a glaring weakness on this team that would stop them from competing at the highest level, which was a lack of explosive offensive playmaking ability. And, I'm a recruiting head, so there's nobody on earth that's going to, out-talk me into just the talent level that Georgia has. But I didn't think that Georgia had the firepower to play from behind. I didn't think that they had the ability to exist in a game like that against a high-powered opponent. And you can say that, Alabama took their foot off the gas, or that they were playing in a prevent, or whatever you want to say to kind of, dismiss this. But Georgia was down 28-0, and they had explosive downfield plays to get back into that game and take the lead. And they were relying on players that, I think we're largely not national stars yet that are going to potentially become that. And like for me, the number one thing in college football, guys, is that like you can fix scheme, you can fix, turnovers or having a bad game plan. What you can't fix is personnel. If you have a personnel issue, that personnel issue is going to stay with you throughout the year. And I'm sure you've talked a lot about Auburn on the show. And, that's an example of that. It's like you can get Hugh Freeze every week for the same problem, but the problem exists because there's a personnel situation. So with Georgia, I just feel a lot better about, guys like Dominic Lovett and Arian Smith and the dudes that made plays to, continue to be explosive enough offensively to win any game against any opponent in college football.
Yeah, no, that's solid.
I do on that point. I want to piggyback one thing, Ari. Watching that game, and we've watched Georgia the whole year, and this includes Clemson. When did they hit their explosive plays? When they were going up tempo. Like if I'm Mike Bobo and I'm watching the whole season up until the second half of the Alabama game, yeah, you've scored points. I'm not saying you haven't scored points, but their explosive plays happened when they were going up tempo. Do you think that may be something that he reaches in the bag to if the normal standard game plan and pace isn't working out? Hey, we're halfway through the second quarter here. Let's go up tempo this drive and see if we can't hit a couple, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially considering the fact that the depth that they have on this team is more likely to continue to be effective playing at that pace for four quarters than the teams that they're playing. That's the thing that you also have to take into account when it comes to winning games in the SEC and in big-time games in the college football playoff is that which teams are actually built to sustain that type of success over the course of not just a four-quarter game, but a 12, 14, 15 game season. And I think that makes sense. I think that Mike Bobo's a little under fire. Every single time Georgia's not doing well, he seems to be the person that gets the brunt of it. And, his job is to be like, hey, this is what's working. This is what's not working. We need to do what's working better. Yeah. So, the thing with Georgia that I think is exciting for them is that, this isn't the 12 or this is a 12-team playoff, not the 14 playoff. If you do poorly in the 14 playoff and get blown off the field or lose a game like this early, you have zero margin for error. I think that Georgia could lose another game and still make the playoff and win the national championship. And they have a nice runway here of a few games before heading down to Austin to see if they're actually built to do it this year. But I think that they are.
Yeah. I'll make one more point before Blaine jumps in, just on the context of that game, because I really don't think Alabama took their foot off the gas so much as people are saying. It's just when you find yourself down that many points that early, you're playing an entirely different style of football for three quarters. When you're going for every 2-point conversion, when field goal's not even in your mind, you're going for every single fourth down. And we saw many times in that game, Georgia couldn't convert a third down, but they're converting all their fourth downs. That changes the dynamic completely. And if you're Alabama, you really can't change your dynamic, right? Like people were saying, well, they got too conservative. There were some instances I didn't think they were conservative enough, but you can't just match fire with fire and say, well, we're going to go for every fourth down too, even though we're up by 15.
Yeah, well, if you want to make the argument about who went prevent, Georgia started rushing 3 and spying 2. So if anybody went prevent, it was Georgia on defense, not Alabama on offense or defensively. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Appreciate you guys stopping by as usual. Got another big weekend this weekend. And then 56 straight days of football starting on Thursday. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with all of it. We got the MLB playoffs, a ton going on. Make sure you're locked in.